Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Got quite a bit to cover at the top today, so bear with me here. Secretary Austin returned to the United States last night after a successful trip to the Middle East, where he had the chance to meet with leaders from Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Israel. During his discussions, the Secretary emphasized the strong and enduring partnership between the United States and these key partner nations towards furthering our shared goals of security and stability throughout the Middle East region. Among the topics discussed during the trip was the importance of freedom of navigation in international waterways and the recent threat of Houthi attacks against commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Upwards of 10 to 15% of global shipping transits these straits, and these attacks are impacting global trade and commerce, negatively impacting the economies of nations around the world and costing commercial shipping firms billions of dollars. To help address this challenge, while Secretary Austin was in Bahrain, he announced the stand-up of Operation Prosperity Guardian, an important new multinational security operation under the umbrella of the Combined Maritime Forces and the leadership of its Task Force 153, which focuses on security in the Red Sea. The Secretary also convened a virtual ministerial from NAVCENT headquarters in Bahrain with ministers, chiefs of defense, senior representatives from over 40 countries, as well as the European Union and NATO, to discuss the increased threat to maritime security in the Red Sea. Secretary Austin underscored how the attacks from the Houthi rebels in Yemen had already impacted the global economy and would continue to threaten commercial shipping if the international community did not come together to address this issue collectively, emphasizing that this is an international problem that requires an international response. In the days ahead, the United States will continue to consult closely with our allies and partners who share the fundamental principle of freedom of navigation, and we expect to see the coalition continue to grow. Switching gears, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown Jr., spoke today by video teleconference with People's Liberation Army of China Chief of the Joint Staff Department, General Liu Zhenli. This is the first time the two leaders have spoken since General Brown became the chairman. During the teleconference, General Brown discussed the importance of working together to responsibly manage competition, avoid miscalculations, and maintain an open and direct line of communication. For more information about the call, I'd refer you to the Joint Staff and their corresponding readout. Also today, the Department of Defense is releasing the DoD instruction on civilian harm mitigation and response, which establishes the department's enduring policies, responsibilities, and procedures for mitigating and responding to civilian harm. As you may recall, in January of 2022, Secretary Austin directed the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy to develop a civilian harm mitigation and response action plan. This plan, which was released in August, outlines steps the department will take and the resources required to implement appropriate recommendations from recently completed studies of civilian harm. The plan also called for the publication of a DoD instruction on civilian harm mitigation and response, which is what we're publishing today. The release of the DoD instruction continues the process of improving the department's approach to mitigating and responding to civilian harm. In addition to the instruction, we are also launching a public-facing website which will include our current civilian harm mitigation and response policies, congressional reports, and other related documents. The website also provides a link to the previously published webpage with guidance for reporting civilian casualties. For more information on the civilian mitigation and response DoD instruction, you'll find these on the defense.gov website under releases. In other news, earlier today, a ramp ceremony was conducted at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware for a dignified transfer of remains of 3 Army Special Operations aviation soldiers who will return home to the U.S. These soldiers and American heroes perished in a helicopter mishap in the Mediterranean on November 10th. The incident claimed the lives of 5 American soldiers, 2 of whom were recovered immediately after the mishap. The team at Dover will work now to confirm the identities of our 3 recovered soldiers before a dignified transfer to return them to their families who were present for their repatriation. The department is proud of the tireless efforts of all involved to bring our service members home, and our thoughts and prayers continue to remain with the families and friends of our fallen teammates. And finally, as you all know, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, defends our North American airspace each and every day. However, on Christmas Eve, NORAD has one additional special mission, tracking Santa as he makes his way across the globe. This is NORAD's 68th year conducting this important mission, and children and families worldwide will be able to call to ask NORAD's live operators about Santa's location on the 24th, starting at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The phone number to call is 1-877-HI-NORAD, hi NORAD, or 877-446-6723. You will also be able to track St. Nick's annual journey on the NORAD Track Santa website, Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And last year alone, NORAD answered over 73,000 calls just on December 24th alone, and the program generated more than 2 million social media followers. Every year, more than 1,000 American and Canadian members of NORAD volunteers and a variety of corporate contributors are proud to continue the tradition of tracking Santa. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions. We'll start with AP, who's on the phone, Leah Baldor.
Thank you, Pat. Two things. One, the secretary met in Israel with his counterpart, Minister Gallant. Can you say in any context or detail what Israel's reaction was to the secretary and the chairman's urgings for a more limited campaign in the war, sort of a scaled back campaign? Can you just give us any context on what their reaction may have been, what we can expect? And then just secondly, on the maritime program that's ongoing, can you say exactly how many countries are actively participating right now? Should we expect to see the U.S. and other ships there all the time? Are they going to take turns? Can you just give us a better grasp of how these countries, I think you had said 10, they're about 10 initially, how are they going to sort of take part in this? How will that work?
Yeah, thanks, Lita. On your first question, again, I'm not going to speak for Minister Gallant. If you had the chance to catch the press conference in Tel Aviv with the secretary and the minister, Secretary Austin made a few things very clear. First of all, he was not there to dictate timelines. This is Israel's campaign. But during their meetings, they did have the opportunity to talk about the status of the campaign. They had the opportunity to talk about milestones and the phasing of the campaign to include transitioning from higher intensity operations to lower intensity operations, which, oh, by the way, are part of any military campaign and does not necessarily indicate that a campaign has ended. So they were very productive conversations. And again, I think Minister Gallant spoke to where the Israeli military is at this moment. And so I'd refer you back to those comments. As far as Operation Prosperity Guardian, we've had over 20 nations now sign on to participate. The nations that have agreed to publicly discuss their participation, we've put those out there. Since the announcement on Tuesday, Australia and Greece have also highlighted their participation in this operation. But again, we'll allow other countries and defer to them to talk about their participation. The key point here is that this, as I mentioned at the top, this is a international problem and it requires an international response. And so we'll continue to work